You know someone like this. Never talks about money, never posts about it, never once brings it up first. They're somewhere in their 50s, maybe further along than that, and whenever something actually costs real money, a roof, a wedding, a health scare, the money is simply there, without a scramble, without a loan application, without a visible flinch. Ask what they do, and the answer is almost disappointing in how little it explains. Something with lawns, something with machines and a laundromat, something with a truck and a pressure washer. The businesses behind quiet, stress-free wealth are, more often than people expect, the businesses nobody would ever choose to describe at a dinner party, and that's not a coincidence. It's closer to the entire mechanism. It's worth being honest about why that mechanism works, because it isn't mysterious once it's named directly. A business that sounds impressive tends to attract competitors just as fast as it attracts customers. Everyone wants in on the thing that photographs well, which compresses margins and shortens the window where early movers actually get ahead. A business that sounds slightly embarrassing does the opposite. It filters out almost everyone before they even seriously consider it. Not because the economics are bad, but because most people quietly rule themselves out the moment they imagine explaining the business to a friend. That filtering effect is, in a very real sense, the entire competitive advantage, delivered for free, to whoever's willing to ignore it. After going through business survival data across dozens of categories, a specific pattern keeps surfacing. A group of overlooked, almost embarrassing business types, with survival rates far above the national average, run quietly by people who never needed anyone to be impressed. Start with laundromats, because the number attached to them is worth sitting with before moving anywhere else. Laundromats survive past the 5-year mark at a rate north of 93%, against an overall small business average where roughly half close within that same window. A well-run location can clear $280,000 or more a year in revenue, with margins commonly sitting near 50%, and the reason isn't cleverness. It's that laundry is not optional. Clothes get dirty on a schedule nobody has to be convinced to follow. And a large share of laundromat customers, often north of 85%, are repeat visitors who never had to be marketed to twice. Automated car washes run on the same logic from a different angle. The industry cleared well past $14 billion nationally in recent years, and a single well-located automated wash can generate somewhere between $140,000 and $190,000 in annual profit once it's built out, largely because the labor requirement approaches zero. People want a clean car, considerably more than they want to spend a Saturday morning washing one themselves. Most modern operators have shifted toward membership pricing, somewhere around $25 to $35 a month for unlimited washes, which converts an occasional purchase into a predictable subscription that lands whether or not the customer shows up that particular week. Vending machines deserve a category of their own, mostly because the entry cost is almost insultingly low. A single machine can produce somewhere around $28,000 a year, with margins near 30%, and the real money shows up when someone stops thinking in terms of one machine and starts thinking in terms of a route. 30-40 machines spread across gyms, break rooms, and hotel lobbies, each one negotiated individually for placement rights and refilled on a simple loop. There's a specialty layer almost nobody mentions: beauty product machines inside salons, tackle and bait machines near fishing access points, phone accessories in airport terminals. The narrower the niche, the thinner the competition, and often the fatter the margin. Junk hauling is worth naming honestly for what it is, because the instinct to dismiss it is exactly the instinct that keeps it profitable for whoever doesn't dismiss it. Large national waste companies post revenue in the tens of billions annually, and while nobody's suggesting a direct competitor to an industry giant, a single local operator with a truck, a trailer, and a handful of dumpsters can realistically bill well past $2 million a year, handling residential and light commercial junk removal. Garbage, unglamorously, never stops being produced. Pressure washing sits near the bottom of the entry cost list. A decent machine, a truck, and a stack of business cards can get someone started for under $4,500. Jobs commonly run $880 to $450 depending on the surface, and the business has a specific, almost self-perpetuating quality. Once one driveway on a block gets cleaned, neighbors notice within days, and referrals start arriving without a single dollar spent on advertising. Self-storage is bigger in scale, but follows an identical psychological engine underneath. The industry generates tens of billions annually. Roughly 1 in 10 American households rents a unit at some point, and net margins commonly land above 38%. More self-storage facilities exist nationally than McDonald's and Starbucks locations combined, and the majority are still run by independent operators rather than large chains, meaning the door hasn't closed. The customer behavior is the real story. Average tenants pay in the range of $120 a month and stay considerably longer than they ever intended to, often forgetting the specifics of what's even in the unit while the payment keeps clearing automatically. Pest control runs on the same recurring revenue engine. The industry sits close to $28 billion nationally. The overwhelming majority of companies are small, local, and often run by one or two people. And roughly 4 out of $5 in residential pest control revenue comes from standing service contracts rather than one-off calls. Insects like laundry don't require ongoing persuasion to keep showing up. Landscaping is a business a huge number of people are already technically running, just running it badly, charging like an employee instead of structuring like an owner. The gap between clearing $38,000 a year mowing lawns personally and clearing $180,000 running a crew almost always comes down to one mental shift: stepping back from the mower and becoming the person who manages the people running the mowers. The moment that shift happens, a lawn care side gig starts looking like an actual landscaping company with real enterprise value. Commercial cleaning follows a nearly identical upgrade path. A single contract with a mid-sized office building can pay somewhere between $2,800 and $9,000 a month, and typically renews automatically year after year. The skill gap here usually isn't the actual work. Plenty of people already know how to clean an office. It's the pricing mindset, moving from billing hourly like staff to billing by contract like an owner, which alone can double or triple income for functionally the same labor. Pool service works especially well in warm climate states, where a technician managing 35 to 45 accounts on a fixed weekly route can clear somewhere between $75,000 and $110,000 a year, often finishing routes by early afternoon. Pools need maintenance whether or not anyone's swimming, which keeps the income flowing through every season, rather than spiking only in summer. Mobile detailing takes the car wash concept and removes the real estate requirement entirely. No storefront, no lease, no permits, just a properly equipped van. A full detail commonly runs $140 to $380, and a driven operator can realistically complete 3 or 4 a day, putting daily revenue somewhere between $420 and $1,500, with minimal overhead beyond fuel and supplies. Scrap metal has a genuinely enormous global market behind it, projected past $700 billion worldwide in the coming years. And the local version of that opportunity doesn't require owning a scrapyard. Someone can start purely as a collector, pulling material from job sites, remodels, and light demolition work, and reselling to recycling facilities, with electronics specifically holding real value because of the trace amounts of gold, silver, and copper buried inside discarded devices. Ice vending is one of the stranger entries on this list, and also one of the most quietly profitable. A single machine can produce upward of $38,000 a year, running fully unattended, 24 hours a day, with the equipment itself typically paying for its roughly $32,000 cost back within 12 to 18 months. It performs especially well anywhere warm, or anywhere near campgrounds and RV traffic, on the strength of a genuinely simple proposition: freezing water and selling it. ATMs are close to pure passive infrastructure once placed correctly. A machine costs somewhere between $1,800 and $2,800, gets positioned inside an existing business, a bar, a corner store, a gas station, and charges $2 to $3.50 per transaction. A single, well-placed unit can bring in $450 to $1,300 a month. And the model scales cleanly, since 10 or 15 machines turns a modest side income into something genuinely substantial, with the only real labor being cash refills and fee collection. Portable restrooms are the business almost nobody wants to say out loud, and almost nobody else is willing to touch, which is exactly the appeal. Units cost $450 to $900 apiece, and rent for $70 to $160 a day, at events, festivals, and construction sites. An operator running a fleet of 50 units can comfortably clear 6 figures annually. It isn't glamorous. It's also not remotely close to unprofitable. Pet waste removal sounds like a punchline until the math gets run. With tens of millions of dog-owning households nationally, and most owners deeply unwilling to handle the task themselves. A weekly visit service charging $14 to $22 per client adds up fast. 50 clients alone puts annual revenue near $40,000, and scaling toward 100 clients pushes that close to $80,000, on overhead that amounts to little more than a scoop and a bag. Parking lot striping is one of the least known businesses on this entire list, despite every shopping center, school, and church parking lot legally requiring visible, maintained lines. Basic equipment runs $2,500 to $4,500, and a single job can pay $450 to $1,800 in an afternoon, with competition thin, largely because almost nobody realizes the business exists as a standalone category. Appliance repair benefits from a demographic shift that's easy to miss. The existing technician workforce is aging out faster than new people are entering the trade, which means competition thins with every passing year rather than growing. Visits commonly run $90 to $380, and against a replacement refrigerator costing $1,400 to $2,800, a $180 repair is an easy call for most homeowners. A handful of common appliance repairs, learnable through structured online courses and basic certification, can support a business for decades. Notary and loan signing work might be the cheapest entry point on the entire list. Certification runs $40 to $140, depending on the state, and a certified notary can charge $70 to $190 per standard signing, climbing to $120 to $280 for mortgage closing specifically. 3 or 4 appointments a day puts daily income in the $450 to $1,100 range, on overhead that's essentially a stamp and a printer. Bilingual notaries have a genuinely underserved advantage here, given how many home purchases involve buyers who specifically need documents explained in a language other than English. And then there's the one worth remembering above the other 19, because it borrows a piece of nearly everything already covered: a wash and fold delivery service. It doesn't require owning a laundromat at all. It requires partnering with one that already exists, handling pickup and delivery, and keeping a margin somewhere around 30 to 35% on top of the wash cost. An operator with 100 recurring weekly clients paying $25 to $45 a week can generate somewhere between $10,000 and $18,000 a month, with no equipment, no lease, and no storefront. Just routing, reliability, and consistency. It's the acquisition business idea in its purest form. Nothing here needs to be invented. It needs to be attached to something that already works and made more convenient. And in most mid-sized cities, that specific convenience layer barely exists yet. None of this means starting all 20 at once, or even starting with the most impressive sounding one on the list. It means picking the one that actually fits, the budget available, the city, and honestly, the willingness to do something that won't look particularly cool in a photo. That last part matters more than people want to admit. A huge amount of the competitive advantage in every business on this list comes specifically from how unglamorous it is to start. Knocking on doors, running a scoop through a backyard, refilling a vending machine at 6 in the morning. None of it photographs well, and that's exactly what keeps the field open. There's a version of this choice playing out right now between two people worth naming, because the contrast says more than another paragraph of statistics could. Marcus is 39, works in facilities maintenance, and brings home close to $58,000 a year. Solid, dependable work. He's talked about starting something of his own for at least 4 years and has never once pulled the trigger, because every idea he seriously considers is the kind of business that photographs well. An online storefront, a personal brand, something with a clean logo he can point to. None of those ideas ever feel finished enough to actually launch, so nothing launches. In the meantime, Marcus spends roughly $260 a month on subscriptions he barely uses, and another $380 eating out. And across 4 years, that adds up to somewhere north of $30,000 spent on nothing that generates a single dollar back. That figure, as it happens, is almost exactly what it costs to buy into a modest ATM route or fund 2 years of a pressure washing operation from scratch. Priya is roughly the same age, works as a dental hygienist, and earns close to $61,000 a year. 2.5 years ago, she did something Marcus still hasn't. She bought a set of commercial-grade pressure washing equipment for just under $4,000, ordered basic business cards, and started knocking on doors in her own neighborhood, offering driveway and siding cleaning. The first month brought in an extra $650. She said her hands were shaking through most of those early conversations. By month 4, she was clearing $2,100 a month on top of her regular income. By month 8, a property management company handling a townhome community handed her 22 units at once as a standing contract. Today, 2.5 years in, Priya has one part-time employee, a dedicated truck, and the pressure washing business alone bills past $165,000 a year. Enough that she's actively planning her exit from the dental office within the next year. Priya didn't have a polished business plan or a designer logo or an expensive course behind her. She had a machine, a truck, and a willingness to do work that plenty of people consider beneath them. The difference between Marcus and Priya was never talent. It was that Priya accepted something Marcus still hasn't. Unglamorous businesses fund genuinely comfortable lives, while the search for the perfect photogenic idea tends to fund nothing at all except the subscriptions and takeout that quietly drain a bank account year after year. What Priya actually built isn't just extra income. It's the specific kind of security that shows up as an absence rather than a presence. The absence of panic if the day job disappeared tomorrow, because something else is already standing underneath her. That's closer to what real financial security actually looks like day to day. Not a number sitting untouched in an account, but the quiet knowledge that a layoff, a recession, or an unexpected expense wouldn't be catastrophic, because there's already a second working source of income that doesn't depend on anyone else's decision. Marcus, for what it's worth, isn't lazy, and it's worth resisting the easy version of this story where one person simply tries harder than the other. He works long, physically demanding shifts, comes home tired, and genuinely intends to start something most weeks. What actually separates him from Priya isn't effort in the abstract. It's that his effort keeps getting funneled into research instead of action, into comparing ideas instead of testing one, into waiting for a version of starting that never requires walking up to a stranger's door feeling a little foolish. Priya felt exactly as foolish the first week. She just kept walking up to the next door anyway. None of this requires quitting a job tomorrow or emptying a savings account into a laundromat by next weekend. It requires actually looking at what's already sitting around, unclaimed, specifically because it's too unglamorous for most people to bother looking. Of the 20 categories covered here, several can realistically be started for under $5,000, and a handful could genuinely begin this coming weekend with nothing more than a tool, a truck, and a short list of neighbors willing to be a first customer. It's worth being specific about what that first weekend actually looks like, because the instinct is always to research a little longer, to compare 5 more options, to wait for slightly more certainty before doing anything at all. The businesses on this list don't reward that instinct. They reward whoever picks one, buys the modest equipment it actually requires, and knocks on the first door before the idea has time to feel too small or too embarrassing to bother with. Priya didn't spend 6 months comparing pressure washers against pool routes against vending machines. She bought one machine, printed one batch of cards, and started walking her own street on a Saturday morning, and the business existed from that point forward, imperfect and small, rather than existing only as a plan that kept getting refined, and never once got tested against an actual customer. Every single one of these 20 businesses shares the same underlying trait. They solve a problem that never actually goes away. Laundry doesn't stop. Cars don't stay clean on their own. Pests come back, trash accumulates, appliances break, pools need tending regardless of the season. That permanence is the entire foundation underneath every number mentioned so far, and it's worth separating from the specific figures themselves, because the exact revenue a given route or contract produces will always vary by city, by season, by how aggressively someone runs it. What doesn't vary is the underlying demand. Nobody has to convince a household that laundry needs doing. Nobody has to run an ad campaign explaining that ants exist. The demand was never the hard part. The hard part for almost everyone who never starts is accepting that the business worth building might not be the one worth mentioning first at a party. And while a large share of people keep waiting for the one idea polished enough to finally feel ready, the people who simply started with what was already available to them tend to be the ones who end up with the exact kind of quiet, stress-free stability everyone claims to want, and very few are actually willing to build. The businesses themselves were never hidden. They were sitting in plain sight the entire time, in every strip mall parking lot, every neighborhood with dirty driveways, every gym with an empty wall where a vending machine could sit. The only thing that was ever actually missing was someone willing to walk past the embarrassment, and knock on the first door anyway.